Good morning, members. Thank you for being here today. When everyone checks into their first command, typically they're eager to make a good first impression. They want to start their careers the right way. Unfortunately, we're here today because Seaman Thomas did the opposite. Seaman Thomas checked into the USS Neversale, his very first command, and straight away he started making poor decisions. Today you're going to hear the story about those poor decisions. You're going to hear about how his very first night he chooses to go out alone into a new foreign city by himself at midnight. He goes to a strip club. At the strip club, he drinks drink after drink after drink. Now, admittedly, part of his story is that he at one point is taken to a back room, even though he denies paying for any prostitution, and is offered cocaine, and according to him, he told NCIS agents that he denied any cocaine. He still, typically one would think, okay, I'm gonna go leave this place, this is not a good place to be, but no. Seaman Thomas again makes a poor decision and he decides he wants to keep partying. He's gonna keep staying there by himself in a foreign strip club because according to him, that was the good decision to make. He stays out till 6 in the morning and it's only then that he goes back to his ship and he says, oh, I'm not feeling well. He doesn't mention anything to his chain of command about the offers of cocaine or any of the women that he was surrounded with. He just glosses it over as feeling a little under the weather. It is not until he pops positive at a command urinalysis 3 days later that we find out that he's tested positive for cocaine. Now today, members, you're probably going to hear about how Seaman Thomas must have accidentally taken the cocaine, didn't know that he was taking it. It's going to be up to you to decide that. Members, at the end of today's board, you're going to have to decide 3 questions. First, is the basis for misconduct met? Do you believe that Seaman Thomas intentionally ingested cocaine? If you believe that that basis is met, you go on to the second question. Do you think this misconduct warrants separation from the Navy? I would posit that it does. We all know it's a zero tolerance Navy. And not only did he deliberately ingest cocaine, he lied about it afterwards. The third question is, if you do believe it warrants separation, what characterization of service would you recommend? As you see in your binders, drug abuse, warrants, and OTH. Seaman Thomas has done nothing in his Navy career to warrant anything other than the fact of an OTH is the characterization that he deserves.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Lieutenant Wagner. I'm the Detailed Defense Counsel in this case. This is my client, Seaman Thomas. What you just heard from the government is a story, and that's it. We are going to tell you what really happened. Who's Seaman Thomas? Well, he's been on active duty for about a year, very junior sailor. He's in the deck department of the USS Neversale. He just got to Spain from California. He's a young man who grew up in a violent environment where there were drugs around. He knows what they look like. He has been around them. He's not necessarily a person that you're going to see at the country club and stuff like that. He'll fully admit that to you when he testifies at this board today. He joined the Navy because he wanted to get an education and make a career out of the Navy. So we've gone through his upbringing, his family history, his childhood. He went to high school in California and why he decided to join the Navy. He wanted to serve his country. Secondly, I want to talk about what happened that night. You're going to hear some evidence throughout the case. We're going to give you some documentary evidence about where he was that night, cab receipts and other things that are going to give you a fuller picture than the government just gave you about what occurred. But I want you, really, as you're looking at that evidence and hearing from these witnesses, I want you to think about this young sailor, 24 years old, from a bad environment, in a foreign country, 1 year on active duty. He shows up, nobody from that command had him get a Liberty Buddy. He doesn't know anybody in the country, so he went out alone. He went to the place the cab driver recommended him to go, this club that we have heard allegations that there's prostitution at with no evidence of the record whatsoever. He goes to the champagne room of this bar, perfectly legal place to go at the time that the misconduct was alleged to have occurred. We'll grant you that later on it was put on the restricted list, but A, he didn't know that it would become at some future point in time put on the restricted list for ROTA. And secondly, the cab driver took him there basically because he didn't know anywhere else to go. And he had no sponsor or mentor to guide him in the right direction. You're gonna hear all this directly from Seaman Thomas. He wants to save his career, he wants to serve, and I invite you to ask him any question you'd like about what occurred in this, during this incident, and why you should look past what occurred, keep him in the Navy. So in closing, members, the government mentioned 3 questions: whether misconduct occurred, whether that misconduct, if it did occur, merits separation or retention in the United States Navy, and if it merits separation, what characterization of service is appropriate. What they didn't mention is that this case is here because if someone pops positive on your analysis, that's mandatory processing. Mandatory processing, as we went over in voir dire, does not necessarily mean mandatory separation. It means it's mandatory that you get this process. The Navy has decided to put this very, very important decision into your fine, able, experienced hands. And what the mandatory processing that happens is you thinking about this and looking at this sailor and kicking the tires on this evidence and really coming to a conclusion about what's best for the Navy and what's best for the sailor. We thank you for your time.